All right, so this is just a real quick recap of linear pairs and vertical angles. So the first thing is when you encounter a problem like this, you have to understand those two relationships. Now to expand that idea is that every single angle in this picture, angle 1, 2, 3, and 4, all of them have a relationship with the other angles in this picture. So your job is to identify those relationships. So the first one is angle 1 and 3, okay? So angle 1 and 3, you'll notice angle 1 and angle 3, those two angles are vertical angles. Now the reason why they're vertical angles is because they're sides, right? They're sides. So the side of angle 1 and this side of angle 1, right, are opposite to this side of angle 3 and this side of angle 3, right? So the purple side of angle 1 is opposite to the purple side of angle 3, and the red side of angle 3 is the opposite to the red side of angle 1. That makes them vertical. That's the definition of vertical angles right there. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start with that. So they have vertical angles. Now vertical angles aren't the only one in this picture. If you look, you'll notice that angle 2 and angle 4 are also vertical angles. Okay, so that's going to be our first term, our first definition, vertical, or not even definitions, just relationship, vertical angles. All right. Now the second relationship is a little bit more complicated. Now the second relationship is what we call linear pairs. Angle 1 is a linear pair with angle 2. All right. Now the reason why, you'll notice that they share a side, so they have this common side, but this side here for angle 1 is opposite to this side here for angle 2. So we'll say that angle 1 and 2 are a linear pair. Now 1 and 2 are not the only linear pairs. Angle 1 is also a linear pair with angle 4, right? For the same exact reason. Notice, they share a common side, but then angle 1's opposite side is angle 4's other side, right? So that right there would give us a linear pair. In other words, you'll notice that the linear pair can be broken down into two angles that are on the straight line, but next to each other at the same time. All right, one more time. All right, so two angles, angle 4 and 3 this time. You'll notice that angle 4 and 3 are on a straight line, and then angle 4 is next to angle 3, and they're still on the straight line, okay? And that's why we call those two angles linear pairs. Same thing can be stated about angles 2 and 3 as well as 1 and 2. So we have linear pairs. Linear pairs. Now, each of these has their own theorem associated with them. The first one is the vertical angles. The vertical angle theorem states that they are going to be congruent, all right? What that tells you is that whatever angle 2 is, angle 4 will be exactly the same. So angle 2 and 4 are congruent because they're vertical. And angle 1 and 3 are vertical. That means angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. Okay, so that's the vertical angles congruent theorem. Next, linear pairs. Linear pairs also have a theorem. Linear pairs are, we'll just say add up to 180. In other words, they are supplementary. Linear pairs are supplementary. So angle 4 and angle 3, those two angles are a linear pair. They're going to add up to 180, right? That's what that means to be a linear pair using the linear pairs theorem. Okay, so now let's break this down to an actual problem. What if angle 1 was actually 130 degrees, right? What if angle 1 was 130? Okay, well, immediately using the vertical angle theorem, you would know that the angle 3 also has to be 130 degrees because vertical angles are congruent to each other. So you now would know that the measure of angle 3 is 130, all right? And then now, using angle 2 and angle the 130, you know that these two angles, the 130 and angle 2, those two angles are a linear pair. That means you could say the measure of angle 2 plus that 130 has to equal 180. And then you would solve it by subtracting the 130 from both sides, and we would now know that the measure of angle 2 is in fact 50 degrees. So we can write 50 degrees for angle 2 over here. So angle 2, 50 degrees. Okay, now to find angle 4, you can either do what we just did with the 130 and the 4, or I like this. We know that this guy is congruent to this guy because they are vertical angles. So we now know that, angle 4 is also 50 degrees. And this is how this is the relationship of the vertical angles and the linear pairs and how you figure out their answers, their measurement.